It's constructed with three different perspectives, and the idea really was that you lead with the two male perspectives, and you try to lure the audience into a kind of a false choice between these two guys, and then reveal this world of women in the third act that's been entirely ignored by the male stories, because in that time and in movies really in general, that tends to happen. But in that time, a woman was not seen as a person. She was seen as property, the property of her father. And then once she reached a certain age, she was married off to a man that her father would arrange, in basically a real estate deal to marry her to a man who was usually around the age of her father, and then she became his property. And so the idea was to have the third act be from the perspective of a woman, and obviously that perspective kind of becomes the truth, the objective truth, because she's the only one telling a story who understands that she is a human being. So, and that was the idea of the architecture of the script. He's just amazing, and I'd been looking for something to do with him since we did The Martian together, and we've had a few near misses, and we kept trying to find the right piece of material. And the second I saw this book, it was like I thought of The Duelist, because that's his first movie, and it was set in kind of medieval France, which I felt nobody builds a world as like Ridley does, and I just and also he's got a kind of a body of work that tends to he's got a lot of great strong female performances throughout his body of work, and I just thought, wow, I think he'd really be great at this, and he's my friend, and I wanted to work with him again, and sent it to him like, what do you think? And he said yes, thankfully. This character of Marguerite de Carrouges, because that was really what jumped off the page of reading the book. That was why we wanted to adapt the book. That's why we wanted to tell this story. She's this incredible hero that we'd never heard of, and it's the kind of person you want to make a movie about. The second you hear the incredible courage that she had and what she was up against and what she did in the context of the world and the culture in which she was born and raised, it's really amazing and something to be celebrated.
It's a huge historical event. It's set in medieval France, and it follows a young woman who testifies that she is raped by the friend of her husband, and it's ultimately about her journey for justice. I play Marguerite, and I think the thing that I was most excited about was the opportunity to give this woman a voice. Sadly, when I was doing my research, it was crazy to me how much information and detail there was about the men, and there was so little about her. So it was a real honor to, hopefully give her some justice and tell her story. This story, the film is split up into three perspectives. We start off with Carrouges, who is my husband, who's played by the wonderful Matt Damon. And then there's Gris, played by the equally lovely Adam Driver. And the interesting thing is that, it's this kind of exploration of three perspectives, but there ultimately only being one truth, and the truth is Marguerite's, who kind of we end on in the final chapter. And it was really interesting for me because in order for the kind of story to work, we all had to really play into each other's narratives. I had to really kind of give the men what it was that they thought of me and needed of me in each moment, which you don't usually have to think of when you come to a project. You usually just focus on your own intentions, and you don't have to worry what anyone else needs from you or thinks of you. So it was a really interesting way to work. The thing that really strikes me about Ridley is his attention to detail. He's meticulous and he doesn't miss a trick, and he's a part of every decision in every camp, whether that be hair and makeup, whether it be art department, set design, location, and it's so immersive. He also films with like 4 or 5 cameras rolling at any given moment, which creates a real energy and forces everyone to be really present, and you come away from that experience feeling incredibly spoiled, because that's not what you get on every other set. Being introduced to this remarkable woman, I felt so empowered when playing her, and I hope the audience take that away. I hope they're moved. And also, this is a Ridley Scott film. It's a spectacle. It's huge. It's beautiful. It's grand. It's, the last sequence in particular with the duel is just so magnificent. And when I seen it in the cinema for the first time in Venice, like, it's so immersive. When you're in there with the sound, and it's just huge. So I really think there's something for everyone in this movie.
We looked at it as this amazing story and opportunity and wanted to kind of dive right in. And right away we thought, we could write a version of this that could be interesting, but I don't know that it would be as resonant because it really is about, ultimately the end of the movie, without giving too much away, is about what life was like for women, particularly during this time. And maybe has some echoes and vestiges of connection to the present, but we didn't try to say, oh, we're making a statement about the present. We tried to talk about this our sort of ancestral Western European culture from the Middle Ages. It was fun working with Matt, and I'm really proud of the movie, and Jodie's amazing in it, Adam is really, really good, and those two parts were pivotal. The movie, because of the delicate nature of sort of the unreliable narrators at the beginning and then the reveal of the real story, in our view, it had to be subtle, it had to be nuanced, and also we didn't want it to feel preachy or obvious. So it had to feel real. Even the villains had to feel real. Ridley had a wonderful idea for the hair and the robes and the jewelry and the whole thing as like sort of embodying privilege and, luxury and all these things, which in particular at that time really stood in stark contrast to the way people lived, But it also meant that I could really take risks and go a long way as an actor. There are some great villain portrayals in history, so it does give you an opportunity to play things that you don't usually get to play. Look, I love this movie. I loved working with Matt and Nicole. I'd love to do it again. Ridley's spectacular. The actors are great.